Welcome to Founders and Fortunes, where we dive into emerging founders, family offices, and the deal flow shaping private markets. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Founders and Fortunes. Today, I'm joined by Brian C. Adams, partner at Mack International, where he leads executive search and talent strategy for family offices. He's also the host of the Mack podcast and serves on the board of Cerrone Partners, a single-family office. Brian's work focuses on people and decisions that shape family offices, from leadership and hiring to succession and long-term continuity. Brian, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely, Ryan. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Of course. And to kick things off, if somebody asked you what you actually do, how would you explain it?
Yeah. In a professional setting, the usual responses, we're a retained executive search firm working with large, complex single-family offices to help them find key C-suite executives with a focus on the chief executive officer, the chief investment officer, and the chief financial officer. But I think actually, in reality, it's just being a marketplace between families that have a need and candidates that have a desire.
It's a marketplace. So for filling in these executive positions?
Yeah, just matching folks that have a need with other people that have a desire in terms of these families that are out there looking for really exceptional talent, helping them navigate that. And I think for a lot of these families, it's really giving them back time at the end of the day, because search, when done properly and at our level, and when you're dealing with families where there's a huge culture fit component, these relationships are very deep and meaningful. It's very time consuming. And so giving them back that time and saving them from that kind of volume of repetition, I think is one of the key values that we bring to the table.
And you have a bit of experience. You've gone from law to real estate, now to human capital. What pulled you into the family office world?
Yeah, so my wife's family has a family office here in Nashville. She's the oldest member of G2. So when I joined the family, we got married, I became an ex officio board member technically. I had no idea what a family office was. I'd never heard of the term before. And so I got invited into that world through my father-in-law, who's our patriarch and the principal, and then our CIO. And I started attending events. We were members of an organization that put on these networking events and these educational events. And this is probably in 2010 range. So the industry was a lot different than it is now. And these were some of the only events that were occurring through an organization called the Institute for Private Investors. And so it just opened up this whole world to me. And then over the next, 15 years, I've really learned and spent a lot of time with folks in the family office ecosystem.
And was there a moment where it all clicked and where you realized, finding the talent, this is the work I'm meant to be doing?
Yeah, I'm on my third career, so it's a work in progress. But I was an attorney, like you referenced, and I was a real estate investor for a long time, and
A successful one, it looks to me.
yeah, we had a good run for about 12 years, and it was great. And I'm still very close with them, that team, and still a lot involved with a lot of our legacy investments. But yeah, I turned 40 and wanted to do something different. To had an experience. I got sober, and it just didn't seem like I just didn't want to do real estate for the next 10 or 15 years. And through a series of serendipitous events and meetings, I got back in touch with Linda, somebody who I've known for a long time through family office circles, but I never really connected with her. And I'd never really thought much about search as an industry, to be honest with you. And it just felt like a a really natural fit in terms of skill set she was looking for, which is somebody that understood family office, understood business development, had a content marketing background, and I was the right age, frankly, in terms of, enough experience so that I could go into the room and be taken seriously, but a lot of runway, hopefully, in front of me.
Hmm.
So I could continue to grow the business with her. And, increasingly, increasing a lot of the families that we work with, when we go and meet with them, they look a lot more like me on the other side of the table than Linda. That's just kind of where we are demographically. So it's worked really well. But for me, it was just about being really open to exploring new things, and then relying really heavily on my kind of YPO forum and a bunch of trusted
Hmm.
advisors who said that, you know, you're a natural fit here. You should do this.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting. So, and you mentioned your sobriety, and congratulations. Was this something that you were struggling with throughout real estate? I know that, it can be very stressful career path, and also part of the lifestyle. Same thing with law too, right? Lawyers famously, it's high pressure. All your previous careers have been high pressure. Um, what do you mind if I ask how that played a role in, I guess, professionally, personally, leading up to this point?
Yeah, it was I think, like a lot of folks, something that just was a big part of my life since
Mhm.
college, and it had become really normalized to me and socialized in a lot of ways.
Mm.
And then during COVID, it got to be a really outsized part of my life.
Mm.
And I realized that I didn't want something that have that kind of control over me.
Mhm.
And through some kind of mediated therapy sessions and a lot of self reflection, just decided that I wanted to experience life a little differently,
Sure.
and to be able to kind of, what I always say is, put it on the table and just have an arm's length reflection on what that relationship looked like for me and what it meant to me. And um, I'm not a proselytizer, it's none of my business what other people do, as long as they're not hurting others. But for me, it's been really good. And I think this chapter of my life, being from 40 to 50, where I'm trying to build this company, I'm trying to be a good father. I've got two boys who are 12 and 9. So the next 10 years is kind of, I've got to get them launched. Been married for 17 years. So trying to keep that going.
Sure.
And it just wasn't helping me do any of those things,
No.
frankly. So,
And congrats again on that. And 17 years of marriage. That's also impressive.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Both
and
take a lot of work. Yeah.
oh, for sure. And so, just taking a step back, you had mentioned Linda, and Linda, I believe, is the founder of Mack International,
Correct.
um,
Yeah.
which has become a trusted name in this space. You mentioned how the partnership kind of came about. Um, what's the origin story of Mack International, that firm, from your perspective?
Yeah. So Linda started the business 23 years ago. She just had her anniversary, I think, a couple weeks ago. And so Linda's from Chicago originally.
Okay.
She grew up in banking. So she came from kind of at the time, uh, uh, BMO Harris world, Northern Trust world, the old line Chicago banking
Mhm.
firms in HR for the most part. But she was working with the banking teams that were working with these large family held businesses. And at that time, there was no term like family office, but they were working with private families that had large operating companies and large pools of investment that they were making for the benefit of their own lineal descendants. And so she kind of went through this series of working at big firms, then subject to M&A, and was really high performer. And she thought that there was this great niche working with these private families, that nobody was really focusing on it. And so she started the business with a computer, a call sheet, and a non compete.
Yeah.
in a sublet office, and just has built this incredible business. And we have this incredible brand recognition in the space. And it's really remarkable, frankly, how what she's accomplished through just incredible amount of hard work and resiliency and really caring about the client. And it's dovetailed with just this incredible growth of that space, which is one of the reasons I really wanted to get involved. Was I think we're very early innings in this ecosystem, in this industry of family office, and it's just an underserved marketplace when it comes to human talent. And so, yeah, she's created an unbelievable brand, and now we have 5 professionals. We're an independent boutique firm, really the only one in the industry that has a team oriented platform. There's some great professionals that are within the larger firms, or maybe just doing kind of an independent approach, but we have a really nice breadth and depth that we can work with. A lot of families, we can handle a decent amount of volume, and we're busy. So it's a great business, honestly.
And it is, and I'm starting to see some other, like you said, independent professionals coming out of the space. And I have, friends my age and even younger where family offices, are really starting to come on the map. Ron Diamond, a
Hmm.
friend, colleague of mine, he spoke at Harvard almost a year ago, and the concept was, graduating from your MBA or leaving college and then working for a family office. And I was really impressed with how many of these students, again, it's Harvard, but still, like you said, it's growing, it's very new, how aware they were of family offices and how engaged they were with joining it instead of the typical wealth management path, for example. Um, and many family offices are institutionalizing. So you pivoted. You're working now around human capital in one of the most private, complex sectors of wealth. What part of that challenge energizes you?
You know, it's a. I had no perspective on search before joining, and I grossly underestimated how difficult of a business it is. Uh,
Yes.
just from a volume perspective, and from a rigor perspective. So, one of the things that I find extremely exciting is it's a business where, given now that I'm on the inside, I see how it works every day. The value we bring to families is incredible, frankly. And I'm talking my book, so we'll just go with the commercial. But
Okay.
considering the number of people I talk with every day and the connectivity we have across the family office ecosystem and landscape, nobody else has the reach that we do. And so, for a family that has a real need, they really need to get the CEO hire correct. They need to get it right. They need to get it right the first time, to be able to give them this massive funnel where we're going out and connecting with 2 or 3,000 contacts, vetting them and qualifying them to bring them 8 actionable candidates, and then helping guide them through that finalization process to land that one. That's a pretty incredible funnel exercise to go through. Um, and these are all folks that, frankly, we've probably met with them in person on the candidate side. We spent time with them, we know them.
Wow.
And so, for a family to feel comfortable and confident that they've run an entirely professional, institutional quality process, um, and to be able to help them get it right, and to find somebody that wants to stay there for 10, 20 years and create value for their family, I go to sleep every night thinking, man, I've really helped these families with a critical need. And ultimately, private capital and family capital, when you break it down, the vast majority of GDP in America. So it really drives the economy. Incredible employment numbers when you kind of break it down. And I think there's a misconception that the world is run on public markets. But the reality is, it's private enterprise and family owned businesses that really run the country. And I find it very um, satisfying to play a small part in that.
Yeah, you made a lot of great points, and I feel like that point about the private markets in the US and the significance that it plays, it has been dwarfed for a while, but you're starting to see a lot coming out from the space about from philanthropy to, the commercial side of things, how much power there is, behind the scenes. Um, and search is crazy. I have a lot of friends that are in recruiting, and
It's full on business. It's a full on job. It's
it is
yeah.
and it's the need because I'm thinking, and I understand. Correct me if I'm wrong. Mack International, you guys work mostly with single family offices. Like they don't have the bandwidth to hire without the help, I think, and it is the family. It is personal. There's a lot of trust they're putting into you. On that note, what has this work taught you about how trust is built and broken?
Yeah, it seems there's all these cliches in the business and it's hard to get away from them, but ultimately it is a trust business, it is a relationship business. Um, I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is that the the and we talk about this a ton, right? Culture fit.
Mhm.
But it takes a very special person to be this talented technically and to want to be of service. And what I mean by that is I didn't fully appreciate it, but when you meet the CEO or the CIO for a big family, you think, oh gosh, they've got this big job. But it's a quirky business because by nature of the structure of these organizations, they'll never be the principal.
Correct.
And so you have to find people that not only are happy but thrive in that environment where they wake up in the morning thinking, "Oh, I can make the principal, I can create value for them today." But I'll ultimately never be the end governing decision maker because I'm never going to be a family member. It just takes a very special individual and it's not for everybody. And I just don't think I had a full appreciation of that component and aspect of it. And it really weeds out a large segment of the population that just won't do well in that type of environment.
Can you expand? I think I know what you're saying. Can you expand a little bit more on that and how hiring for a single family, what that means in contrast to the typical type of, CEO or CIO position?
Yeah, I mean Linda talks a lot about the service heart. And so you look at things like, were they an Eagle Scout? Were they a Girl Scout?
Wow.
Were they of military service? Did they play team sports in college, especially with no aspirations to go beyond college? These people wake up in the morning and they think, I really want to be part of a team that drives me. I find huge enjoyment on it. Looking for things like continuous improvement. So people that are um, trying to put this politely. So activities where you get immediate negative feedback and you thrive on it.
Mm,
So like being a triathlete, being competitive tennis player, doing martial arts, golf. When you talk to people, what they do in their spare time, what they do in the evenings, what they do on the weekends, and if it's activities where there's no end game, like
yes. You can't
music,
win.
for instance, like there's no ultimate. Oh, you beat the final boss and that's the end of the game. These are continuous improvement where you get immediate negative feedback and you love it
Mm.
because that's what working with a family office is like. There's no destination nirvana. Um, there's no finality there. So those are the kind of characteristics that we look for. But for people in traditional finance, those incentive structures are made for people to take, asymmetric risk, benefit from that upside, and be very sharp elbowed. And the
Mm,
market rewards them immensely for that. That's great. And if you're a shareholder and a stakeholder and your incentives are aligned with that individual, you can make a lot of money. But it's very hard to have duration there.
mm,
And there's no thought to how success looks beyond the metrics. And so for a family, when we hire a CIO, return is important, but not if it means sacrificing the ability to have Thanksgiving dinner together.
mm,
Whereas on the street, it's all about your numbers and your returns.
mhm.
Nobody cares you can't commit felonies, but like if you're not the greatest person in the world, the market forgives you
Yes.
if you perform. And success is really qualified within a quantifiable metric oriented sphere. Families just don't work like that.
No, and it's their capital, it's their money that you're losing if you do make huge risks. Um, on the flip side, because we're talking about candidates for these roles, uh, what are some of the patterns or quiet signals that tell you a family isn't quite ready to hire?
So if you ask them what's the vision for the family office the next 10, 20 years, and if they have trouble articulating that on any level, what's success looks like. Hey, if you were bringing this person to the role and I call you in 5 years, what are 3 or 4 things that this person would have achieved for you that would have qualified them as a successful hire? Um, there's 3 kind of base elements we always talk about, which are um, who are the clients being served, what's the scope of services being provided, and what's going to be insourced versus outsourced.
Mm,
Now, sometimes for a de novo startup family office, first hire, that person will help you identify them.
mm,
But if you haven't spent any time reflecting on that, it's going to be very hard to find somebody. Linda always says that if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there.
mhm,
And it can be really challenging to bring somebody into an environment where there's no sense of the direction of what's happening.
mhm,
And I think the biggest gap um, is really between expectation and reality.
mm,
I can tell, as long as I know the truth about the situation, I can find the right candidate that can
mm,
be successful for you. The challenge is when a family says one thing, or they and this is the problem when families run search themselves
mm,
often, is they don't have a very critical eye, whereas a third party, and Lynn and I are going to triangulate on you and spend a ton of time on you and talking to all of your key stakeholders, and we're going to get very tight on what the reality is on the ground. I think the problem is when expectations are not the reality, you bring somebody in, and that's when suffering occurs.
and
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 it's hard to deal with.
and does that happen often, Brian? Because a part of me would think that the families who come to you guys for the first time, these, first generation family offices, they have tried to do the things in house maybe already, right? They took a crack at it, it didn't work. Are they buttoned up when they come by the time that they arrive at your door? Or uh, is it frequent where you get family offices where you really need to help them find these, find the vision?
I think for the most part, by the time folks get to us, um, we're a very serious firm. We took our work very seriously. Um, by the time they get to us, most families are ready.
Mm,
And especially if they're new to the space, it's often a case where they've had a failed search or a failed effort. Um, and so we can help them with that. But yeah, I mean, once we have a series, and sometimes it takes a long time. We talk to families for years before they're ready.
Mm,
Um, and we're a significant process. I mean, it's 6 months of very intense work.
mm.
So the family has to be ready for that and have allocated resources and time accordingly.
And that sounds, I'm sure, probably the quick end of things getting done. I'm sure it takes even longer to find that right candidate because of how complex and outsourced family offices have become. Um, does that sound right? Does it take, what is
No,
that?
we have a very rigorous structured process
Oh,
from when you press go to when you have a final candidate. It's just about 5 months,
wow.
maybe
Okay.
4. Yeah.
That's
So
incredible.
yeah, unlike Linda really created the business in reaction to how search is typically done, which is like never ending, and
Yes.
deliverables are
Painful.
very, yeah, super painful, and it just can drag.
Hmm.
We don't work like that.
Wow. You guys
So,
really are the best.
well, we're very good at what we do. Uh, but we have a process, we have a system, we have a structure, we have deliverables, we have dates, we have a timeline, and we always deliver. So
Which is incredible. And I want to pivot a little bit. You've made the term expert generalist part of the family office conversation.
Linda coined it, for the record. Linda
Oh,
coined it.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Um, what does that role entail? How do you know when someone's the right fit?
Yeah, so Linda made this term um, many years ago, and
Okay.
essentially because the role of the CEO, sometimes the CIO, depending on the structure and the platform for a family office, is so complicated, involves so many different stakeholders, um, and because families have become so complex, it's used to describe somebody that has the ability to dig in and reach into all the facets of wealth management, asset management, but maybe not be a subject matter expert in any one particular. So they have enough range to work across tax, accounting, investments, governance, executive leadership, just because the complexity of the role has increased dramatically. And when you're dealing with a family that's a big, complex family that has a lot of moving pieces, um, you need somebody with that type of breadth and depth, um, both just the technical expertise, but also the ability to be the chief kind of customer relations manager a lot of time.
So it's kind of a mix of skill set, mindset, or is there something else?
No, I think that's right. I think it's every family is a little bit different, obviously. So you're going to find the right culture fit for them. Um, so the challenging part in today's environment is to the hyper specialization of financial and professional services is a real challenge.
Mm,
A lot of these firms, be it a law firm, accounting firm, or investment firm, you know, the way that they can justify their fees is by having these deep subject matter experts within one specific area. And that's justifiable, but it's very hard to get a generalist approach these days because
mm,
people get pigeonholed very easily.
yes.
And so that's where our ability to reach into the family office world is so powerful because all executives and leaders and professionals within other family offices probably do have that range because they have to.
Hmm.
And so I think that's where we provide really great value is we certainly recruit from everywhere, but the ability to go into these pretty opaque black box organizations that it can be very damaging to the candidate if anybody finds out that they're participating in a process
Oh yeah.
just because of the ecosystem we exist in. The ability to have that brand and trust with that candidate cohort is
Mm.
really powerful.
And at this point, speaking to the candidates, you've interviewed hundreds, thousands of candidates. What can you usually tell within the first 5 minutes of an interaction?
If they start talking about, if they use a lot of I sentences, well, I'll put it this way.
Oh, that's a good one.
So, if they use a lot of I sentences, if they talk about their pedigree and background, they talk about their personal accomplishments, um, they don't ask any questions, they're not curious, probably going to be pretty challenging fit. I would say that seasoned family office executives, when we approach them about a new opportunity, they immediately ask a lot of questions around governance,
Mm.
culture, and legal entity structuring, because those are the things that they know will really matter over the long term. New candidates to the family office space typically talk about comp, work from home, and relocation.
Is that a generational thing or
No, just people that know what they're talking about. Because people that have seen the movie before know that governance is really important,
sure.
legal entity structuring is really important, and family culture is pretty much everything. Um, Whereas I think people that aren't in the space, that haven't been inside or dealt with a lot of families before, they don't even know that those are the questions they should be asking.
Absolutely. And could be the difference between the longevity of their job or
Yeah,
not.
because principal risk is pretty significant in these
Sure.
roles, you know. And so, how do you mitigate principal risk? Well, governance, legal entity structure, and culture.
And it's interesting. Have you ever been surprised by a candidate who completely subverted your expectations in a good way?
All the time. That's why you do the reps. Yeah, that's why. I mean, you never know where a conversation is going to go,
Hmm.
and it's important that, I mean, my job is to talk to everybody and know everything. So, you know, I try to do 10 to 20 phone calls or Zooms a day.
Wow.
Don't always hit it, but that's kind of the goal.
And let's talk a little bit on that governance line and secession. We've seen bad secessions, they can ruin, destabilize a family for years. In your opinion and expertise, what are the key reasons that these transitions go wrong?
Um, Lack of communication, interfamily relational dynamics, and poor structural governance, right? I mean, I think if you have a really strong board that's empowered with independent directors
Mm.
that are compensated and they know what they're doing and the family listens to them, you're going to be okay, probably. But if it's just the principle and it's Soviet democracy where you've got to vote, but there's only one candidate and there's no real thought process around where this is going for the next 25, 50 years, and there's no, especially if there's no operating company longer, they're purely a financial, they had a liquidity event, they're purely a financial corpus of assets.
Hmm.
It's very hard to have that be enduring.
And you kind of touched on it, but could you walk us through what a clean, well-structured handoff actually looks like?
So we talk about a plan for success for both the incoming and the outgoing professional, right? So the incoming candidate has to have a plan for success of, hey, do they have an advocate? Do they have support from the constituent governing relevant bodies? Um, let's get them some early wins early on. let's do a charm campaign and have them meet with the key stakeholders and the people that actually have sway politically and social capital
That's cool.
in the family and really define success for them. Like, what does it look like? And then the outgoing, you know, if it's a succession,
Yeah.
then what does the exit ramp look like for that person? How do we put them in a position to be successful? What are roles and responsibilities that we can give to them that will enable them to have a clean break? I think that's just as important as the incoming.
Certainly. And there's you seem to highlight the importance of helping the outgoing leader exit well. What else does that involve? What does that involve?
Um, I think most there's when you have the trusted advisor, it's really hard for them to let go and for you to let them go.
Hmm.
Timing is very hard. Families always want to keep this around longer um, than you want. I think anything outside of 6 months, there's no reason for it. You know,
Mm.
if we can get the president out the door in 6 months, we can get the CEO out the door in 6 months.
And what do you think the real issue is during these transitions? Is it control? Is it security? Is it identity?
I think unless there's a third party professional helping understand where roles and responsibility and remit start and stop,
Mm.
it's going to be hard. Because if everyone in the office still looks towards the outgoing and they never leave, the person incoming won't feel empowered.
Mm.
And unless you give them very, stringent spheres of influence, nobody knows who's in charge. And that's the dangerous thing.
And I know that we're running short on time, Brian, so I'll just jump to some of the closing reflections, but I'd love to do a part two because there's so many more sections that I
Yeah,
wanted to
we can
dive
do
deeper
it
in.
for sure.
Um, so closing up, wrapping things up, you've interviewed a lot of leaders. What's a question you've asked them that you've had to wrestle with yourself?
Yeah. Um, if there can ever be such a thing as kind of a balance between your professional and personal life,
Hmm.
if it's achievable, if it matters, if that's even the right question. Um, I think that's the one that when you have kind of wide open, vulnerable conversations, um, there has to be a deeper meaning there. I think the why is really important for families and for candidates. Like, why do you do this?
Is there an answer to that question that you've seen as correct or a green flag?
I think there's seasons of life.
Hmm.
There are chapters in your book. Like right now, I've got 10 years with my boys to get them launched.
I love
After
that
they,
expression, by the way. You said that twice. I think that's really
well,
interesting.
because you don't want to be nostalgic. I think nostalgia is really scary. So
Wow.
to think of them as leaving the house is some kind of negative thing.
Hmm.
Launching them is like a shuttle launch. Good for the shuttle and good for NASA. Like I did my job, you did your job. My job is to get them launched.
Hmm.
It's not looking back on this. It was so sad they left. I mean, it's a season of life. And after they launch, my wife and I will have a different chapter. But
Hmm.
right now, like when I look back, when I think about success for me, when I'm 75 or 80, I'm like a very specific image of being on the beach with my kids and my grandkids and my wife. It's like, okay, so what do I have to do to get that affected? Well, I've got to stay married. I've got to have a relationship with my kids. They've got to want to have a family so that they have a positive experience of being a family member themselves. I have to stay physically active and mentally acute to pull that off.
Mm.
So like, are the things I'm doing today enabling that future of occurring? That's how I think about it.
I love that outlook. Um, and last question today. If someone listens back to this conversation a decade from now, what do you hope stands out?
That I cared. Like I care about what I do personally and professionally.
I think that definitely rang true. Um, and you care a lot about your family. And in the family office world, I think that probably makes you even more effective at what you do because of how personal, um, the roles are, the interactions are. Yeah, really impressive stuff, Brian. Thank you so much. And before I let you go, is there anything you want to direct the viewers' attention to? LinkedIn,
Yeah, I
website?
mean, I'm a prolific LinkedIn user, so if you ever want to reach out to me, and I mean this too, it's actually kind of interesting thought experiment. I have a lot of people reach out to me nowadays, obviously,
Sure.
and a lesson I try to teach my kids, and the modality of communication will change, right? It won't always be the phone, but like I ain't hard to find. My email and phone number are on my LinkedIn profile. They're on the website. And every time somebody reaches out to me, if it's not a warm intro, it's like, hey, call me anytime. Here's my cell. The amount of people that don't make the call, it's incredible. So the flip side is if you're willing to pick up the phone and make the call, a lot of good things will happen to you in your life. So
Absolutely.
hit me
I
up on
agree.
LinkedIn.
Well, that's it for our podcast today with Brian Adams. Hit him up on LinkedIn, follow him, connect. And Brian, thank you so much for joining us and look forward to our future communications.
We'll do part two, Ryan. Thank you so much for having me
Let's
on.
do it.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian.
All
Bye.
right.
If this episode gave you insight, hit subscribe and drop a review. If you want to stay ahead on deal flow, investor strategies, and the future of private markets, connect with me on LinkedIn and subscribe here on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in to Founders and Fortunes.